What up, Cavs Nation? I'm your host, Ethan Sands, and I'm back with another episode of the Line and Gold Talk podcast. Joining me today, Chris Fedor and Jimmy Watkins, two of cleveland.com's finest, and we are going to go into one of the most coveted players in free agency that had his free agency kind of stripped away from him for a majority of the summer, Malik Beasley, who was a subject of or a target of gambling accusations when it comes to a federal gambling investigation. And Malik Beasley, of course, as we all know, was on the Detroit Pistons last year as one of the best snipers from beyond the arc last season. Chris, I know there are so many different stipulations when it comes to the conversation surrounding Malik Beasley, how much money he could have been offered at the beginning of the summer, throughout summer, and now how much money is going to be evidently taken away from him because of how late it is into the game and having to wait this whole thing out. It has already been reported that the Cavs are in the talks of trying to get Malik Beasley. How true do you believe those statements to be? And also, how likely do you think it is that the Cavs can get someone like Malik Beasley on a veteran minimum contract?
Well, they don't have a lot of other competition in terms of can they get him on a veteran minimum contract, because the teams that are going to be interested in Beasley at this point in time and the teams that he's going to have an interest in are all contending teams that have about the same to offer, the veterans minimum type contract. And for him, it's an unfortunate situation, but it's the reality of the situation that he's in. He probably has to take a 1-year veterans minimum deal and hope that he can rebuild his reputation and rebuild his value and see if there's still enough time to get himself a new contract down the road if he does the things that he needs to do for whatever team it is that he's going to sign with. And sure, I think the Cavs have expressed interest in him. I think they should express interest in him. These are the kinds of opportunities that if we were talking about the beginning of free agency and the stuff wasn't swirling around Malik, he wouldn't be available. He'd be back with the Detroit Pistons. Detroit was going to re-sign him. Detroit wanted him back. Detroit valued all the different things that he brought to them last year, especially the three-point shooting and a little bit of scoring off the bench. So if all that stuff off the court wasn't going on with Malik, then he wouldn't be available right now. So this is an opportunity for the Cavs, for the New York Knicks, for other teams that have a quote-unquote open roster spot and other teams that have championship aspirations to see if they can take advantage of this situation that Malik found himself in. So it would be wise for the Cavs and these other contenders to take a look and just gauge his interest in whether he wants to join the team and whether he's okay with the role that would be available to him at this point and whether he's okay playing on the kind of salary that they have to offer to him. You're right, Ethan. He was one of the best six men in the entire NBA. He was one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA. There is certainly a place for him if you think about the style of play that the Cavs have offensively. There's certainly a place for him on this roster. It doesn't mean that he would have a huge role. It doesn't mean that he would be a core player. It doesn't mean that he would be one of the most important players on the roster. But there's certainly a place for somebody who has the kind of skill set that he has.
First of all, I think this might be a heavy lawyer lift for who's ever drawn up this contract. Because I
think that the Cavs have one of those in their front office that is making some of these decisions. Jason Hillman got to start doing that back in the day.
Yes, Malik Beasley, the fact that teams are showing interest in Malik Beasley suggests to me that there's a level of comfort that Malik Beasley is not going to get some big hammer down. He hasn't quite been cleared of this entire investigation, but he's not a target of the investigation. I think that's an important clarification to draw up here. Quite frankly, I don't really know what that means. I'll just tell you right now, I'm stuck in the Browns traded Kenny Pickett. The Browns are opening different eggs with their, we gave up a 5th round pick. We're getting a 5th round pick back. We gave the Eagles a backup quarterback that they had to cut, whatever. That doesn't matter. From a basketball standpoint, I think the Cavs have the culture which is important in a situation like this to to bet on a guy like this and build him up, quite frankly, because Malik Beasley's been through quite a bit over the last few months, whether he ends up being completely cleared of this or not. I mean, there's as a result of this investigation, a lot of other personal business of Malik Beasley's, financial business of Malik Beasley's has come to light, and that doesn't sound very fun to me. The Cavs have a winning culture. They have a strong culture. They have the kind of coach, I think, who can inject the kind of confidence that Malik Beasley needs right now, right? How many times did we see Kenny Atkinson at different points of last season push the right buttons with guys who needed a pick-me-up at certain times? That's all well and good. And from a strictly player in, player out value perspective, dollar for dollar, I feel quite comfortable in saying there is no better basketball player available in free agency right now, particularly for the minimum. Malik Beasley's second on 6 Man of the Year ballot, as we discussed. I think at case for first place, given how important he was to the Pistons offense. Now, you do want to be a little bit careful betting on someone coming off of a career season, but again, it's a minimum contract. So what's the bet really? My question would be this. Do the Cavs need another guy that will be picked on defensively in the playoffs? Is the value so great that it kind of just doesn't matter what exactly Malik Beasley's skill set is? Because I think we were drawing up what the Cavs need for a roster for a 14th roster spot. I don't know that it would exactly if you gave it to a police sketch artist that he'd come back to you with a picture of Malik Beasley. And the other question I would have is this the best situation for Malik Beasley from a role perspective? Like, I feel like the Cavs rotation is pretty darn set right now, and other teams have more to offer him. Like, I just don't. Where does he fit in? I feel like he's he's a good regular season player for sure. And they would find minutes. Kumbaya Kenny is going to go 11, 12 deep if he needs to, but I just feel like for Malik Beasley, there's more out there that someone else can offer: playing time, shots, ball handling shares, all that sort of stuff. So it makes sense to me that the Cavs are sniffing around this. I don't know that it makes sense for Malik Beasley to choose this situation.
Remember when Kobe Altman talked about at his end of season press conference, there's this space that we're now in, and we like living in it, and we're comfortable living in it. These are the kinds of decisions that the Chicago Bulls don't have these kinds of decisions to make, right? The Charlotte Hornets don't have these kinds of decisions to make. When you're a team like the Cavs, when you're a team like the Knicks, when you're a team historically like the Celtics, when you're a team historically like the Lakers, these are the opportunities that in some cases get handed to you. Guys take less to join you. Guys are willing to latch on even though there's an uncertain role. Look, if I'm Malik Beasley, I'm more into the idea of joining the New York Knicks because I think they would have a better need for what I bring to the table, and I think there's a bigger opportunity for me in New York. They're still trying to replace the three-point shooting that they lost from Dante DiVincenzo last year. They've spent a lot of this offseason trying to revamp their bench and fortify their bench and make it so that they don't completely crumble when Jalen Brunson is off the floor. But it's still not to a point where they're 11, 12 deep. And if Malik Beasley goes to the Knicks, he's just going to get buried on the depth chart. There is a chance that he joins the Cavs and just gets buried on the depth chart. There is that possibility. There's also the possibility that he's better than Sam Merrill. Maybe, possibly. So that would be the other way that I would flip it on you guys is, you said, Jimmy, do the Cavs need somebody like Malik Beasley? I mean, no. We're talking about the theoretical last open roster spot that the Cavs are willing to give somebody because they're going to keep number 15 open because that's just what they do and because of the salary cap situation that they're in. So we're talking about the last theoretical roster spot, and whoever it is that they would be looking at for this thing is going to be flawed in a significant way. But the question becomes, how comfortable are you with Sam Merrill as the backup shooting guard? How comfortable are you with Sam Merrill in a more consistent, expanded role than what he's had in the past? And if your answer is, I'm not entirely comfortable, or I'm not as comfortable as the Cavs are, given what the Cavs were willing to commit to him financially, well, then Malik Beasley is an outstanding insurance policy, because Sam Merrill can't handle the increased responsibility, if he can't handle the increased pressure that comes with this contract that he has never had before in the NBA, and this role that he has never had in the NBA before on a team with championship aspirations. Well, here's a guy that can do it. Yeah, there are questions about him defensively. Yeah, there are questions about his streakiness. Yeah, there are questions about his shot selection. But on this team, he just becomes a specialist in that kind of role. And he becomes insurance for what you believe is a better version of Sam Merrill than what you've had before, but may not be ready for. It's a wait and see approach with him.
So I guess the question then becomes, would you rather have Malik Beasley or Sam Merrill?
No, I don't think that's the question.
No.
And I don't think that has to be the question. But I think it's just, you have in insurance, you have depth, you have a little bit more comfort than what you have going into the season right now. Because Sam Merrill can't handle the role, the expanded role. And if he can't handle this new responsibility that he's going to have, where do the Cavs turn currently with the way that their roster is constructed? It's probably more minutes for Max Strus, maybe more minutes for Donovan Mitchell, more minutes for Tyrese Proctor, and he may not be ready for that as a rookie physically. Maybe from a maturity standpoint, maybe from a mental standpoint, but from a physical standpoint, is he ready for that on a team that is a legitimate contender? So if Sam can't handle it, the Cavs believe he can. That's why they gave him the contract that they did. But if he can't handle it, what's the backup plan now as it's currently constructed?
Yeah, that's a strong sell from the Cavs' perspective, I think. Any sort of rotation, I've been barking up this tree all summer about how it doesn't even have to be like, yes, Sam Merrill in a larger role, that could be someone that the Cavs need to upgrade upon at some point during the season. But again, even if this is another Lonzo Ball insurance policy, and it's again not a 1-to-1. Obviously, Malik Beasley is not the defender that Lonzo Ball is, but when again 14th roster spot, if you get a warm body that can give you 10 minutes in the playoffs, I'd call that a win from the 14th roster spot, and Malik Beasley could actually give you more than that. So I get it. I really do get it from that perspective. And the gamble is, there is no gamble really, because if it doesn't work out with Malik Beasley, if there's ends up being more that comes out of this investigation, it doesn't work out, or he has trouble bouncing back from it. And we saw after the Terry Rozier gambling probe, which I think he was also eventually, I don't think he was ever charged officially with anything. Like, the dude just fell apart. He has just never been the same player since he was like a 21 point per game scorer for the Hornets that he gave up a first round pick for him, thought he would be a big part of their team going forward. He's just a nothing burger for them. It's a puzzling situation over there. If that happens, the Cavs go,
well, imagine trying to play basketball with, a federal investigation
exactly
over your head.
For sure.
Easy.
Oh yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But if that happens here, when Malik Beasley just said, okay, minimum, bye. Didn't work out. We tried, we failed. We'll get up tomorrow morning and do it all over again. And I would still say, from the Malik Beasley perspective, me competing with Sam Merrill for minutes doesn't sound like the most appealing situation for me.
I don't think Malik looks at it and says, oh my gosh, like Sam Merrill, what an impediment to me. He was one of the best 6 men in the NBA, but it's coming to a situation where there is a guy there that the organization just invested in. And this coaching staff clearly has an affinity for.
So I wanted to just run through a couple of Malik Beasley's stats and what he was able to accomplish in the 2024-2025 season. Obviously, he was first in bench points per game and a minimum of 60 games played, but we also know Malik Beasley played in all 82 games last season. He was second in total three-pointers made, second in bench three-pointers made, fifth player ever with 300 or more three-pointers made. It was also the most threes ever by a Piston in franchise history. And he joined Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry as the only players ever with 300 or more three-pointers made on a 40 or better three-point percentage in a season. Just going into his official stats, he averaged 16.3 points per game on 41.6% from deep, 43% from the field, in 27.8 minutes per game, and again, 82 games and just 18 starts. But the other portion of this that we kind of alluded to and went into slightly is the contract situations around the league and who was capable and able of giving him more money that he might want to redeem because of what he's lost. And obviously, the other portion of this is the Detroit Pistons, as Chris was mentioning, had set to complete a 3-year, $42 million contract with Malik Beasley, which was halted when the allegations came out. And as of Friday, to say this as blatantly as possible, Malik Beasley was labeled as no longer a target of the federal gambling investigation conducted by the Eastern District of New York, according to his attorneys.
Nobody knows who these guys are.
Right.
They're just attorneys.
And that was a report put out by ESPN on Friday. So again, I agree with Jimmy. Who knows if there's more to come out of this conversation, of this investigation. The NBA hasn't said that it's done with. ESPN.
This is why you're an organization, you kick the tires. It doesn't mean you're committing to it.
No.
Just because the Cavs are showing interest, just because the Knicks are showing interest, it doesn't mean that those teams are going to go out and sign it. It just means that they're showing interest and they're doing their due diligence and they're talking to the people that they need to talk to. And they're trying to figure out, okay, does this make sense for us? Does this make sense for Malik? Is this a fit for us from a culture standpoint? Is this a fit for us from an on-court standpoint? All that kind of stuff. The Cavs are in no rush to make any kind of determination on what they're going to do with their theoretical final roster spot. It's clear that they've been in no rush to do that. It's late August at this point in time, and it's still technically available. I don't think they've made a determination on the particular position that they're looking for with this open roster spot. But as Jimmy keeps saying, what's the downside? What's the downside to considering this possibility? What's the downside to looking at a possibility of bringing in this kind of player? Because this isn't the same situation. We talked in the past on this podcast about Russell Westbrook. Ethan, I think you brought up Russell Westbrook. And that's a whole different situation. And that's a future Hall of Famer who still believes he has a status, who isn't just going to sign with a team to be guy number 14. Malik Beasley is in a different situation. Malik Beasley is in a situation where it's late August. He missed out on all the money in free agency. Like I said, he needs to repair his reputation and repair his value. He may just be looking for, is there any opportunity, any NBA opportunity where I don't have to go to Shanghai? You know what I mean? That's way different in this kind of, and that's the type of guy that you're willing to bring on board because you're saying to yourself, well, he's not going to ruffle feathers. He's not going to start complaining about playing time. He's just happy to be in the NBA. He's just happy to have some kind of contract. He's just happy to have what seems like a big deal off the court, somewhat, emphasis on somewhat, behind him at this point.
And he should be as motivated as he's ever been in his entire career. So, role acceptance, yeah, I'll accept whatever role you give me. Shot selection, beggars can't be choosers. If I'm open in the corner, yeah, I'll shoot it. But Donovan, tell me what you want me to do. I will do it. Again, Malik Beasley's defensive concerns have as much to do with Malik Beasley's stature that it does with efforts. But you're gonna get maximum efforts. He'll be diving on the court for loose balls. This is a guy who thought he was getting 3 years, $42 million this summer or whatever it was. Now he's not. He's in the prime of his career. These should be his prime money making years. He's probably got one chance left, even in a normal circumstance, probably was going to be his last sizable contract in the NBA. Like there's some real urgency here. So if you thread the needle the right way here, if you introduce him to the culture the right way, and you find that he's still the player that he was last year or something close to it, even the 82 game version of Malik Beasley, you find out he's not as good in the playoffs. He's a very valuable regular season player if it works out. And again, if it doesn't work out, oh well, we gave him the minimum. It doesn't really matter. And one more, just because we brought up Russell Westbrook, I have to bring this up. The Sacramento Kings, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're the word on the streets that the Sacramento Kings are trying to trade Malik Monk, who is a better player than Russell Westbrook at this stage of his career, and an integral part of the most recent winning culture of the Sacramento Kings, maybe the only winning culture in Malik Monk's life, honestly, that the Sacramento Kings have ever had. They're trying to get off of Malik Monk so that they can sign Russell Westbrook on a team that already includes Zach LaVine and what are you doing?
Yeah.
What is happening over there? I just can't fathom that.
Before you went on a sidebar there, you bring up a point about Malik Beasley and whether he's playable in the playoffs. That's something else from a Cavs standpoint. It doesn't matter all that much, right? Like if Malik Beasley is unplayable from a defensive perspective on a Detroit Pistons team that needs him to be playable because they're relying on him to be their sixth man and because they're paying him $13 to $15 million annually, then that's an uh-oh, right? That's the situation that the Cavs ran into with Isaac Okoro. In our situation, from a salary perspective and for what we're competing for, we cannot have an unplayable playoff commodity making $11 million. We can't do that. We can't justify that in our salary situation. So if that was the case for Malik in Detroit, and I'm not saying that it was, they played him in the playoffs, but if that was the case for him in Detroit, okay, that could potentially be crippling. For the Cavs, if that's the case, then it's just guy number 14 not being part of your playoff rotation, and guy number 14 usually isn't part of your playoff rotation.
So I just wanted to get into the contracts that we were going into a little bit there. Malik Beasley isn't not used to a one-year deal either, right? Because he just had a one-year deal with Detroit last year. I mean, that he signed in the 2024 offseason.
Yep.
But obviously, as the Pistons were waiting on the decisions to be made on his gambling accusations, they signed Karis LeVert, they signed Duncan Robinson, they signed Javonte Green. Two of those players the Cavs are extremely familiar with. Now, they're only capable of signing Malik Beasley to a $7.2 million contract. Teams that have an exception to sign Beasley to a contract greater than $7.2 million, as Chris was kind of getting into a little bit earlier, are not going to be contenders this coming season. Chicago Bulls, Indiana Pacers, New Orleans Pelicans, Sacramento Kings, Washington Wizards, and the Brooklyn Nets, of course, have cap space of more than $20 million. Also, I think it's interesting because as this news was circulating the interwebs, everybody was showing clips of the 2024-2025 season where Malik Beasley had some questionable plays.
He has had questionable plays since he came into the NBA. That's nothing new. He's like the true definition of a wow what player. Like he'll go on a heater and he'll make 7 threes in a game and you're like, wow. And then other games you're like, what the hell are you doing? How the heck are you in the 6th man of the year conversation? That's just kind of who he is. So like, I don't know if that's gambling probe related. I don't know if that's, I mean, I think you can pull up lots of clips of lots of guys throughout the course of history that are just that type of player where it does kind of seem like there might be something happening from a gambling perspective, but it's just who they are as a player. Like pull up old stuff of J.R. Smith and you're like, what the heck? Hello? NBA Finals, end of the game situation. Even LeBron James is like, have you played basketball before? Like organized real basketball? Like, what are you doing? That's just kind of who Malik Beasley is. So I know that those clips are circulating and stuff like that, but I bet you can find some from Malik Beasley's rookie year that are just like that before gambling became normalized.
For clarification, the 2023-2024 season was the biggest year that was under the microscope when it came to this federal gambling investigation. And I know I said the NBA really didn't say anything, but the NBPA, the National Basketball Players Association, did reiterate to ESPN on Friday, saying that there has been no evidence of more of an issue with gambling in the league outside of Jonte Porter, who was banned from the NBA after a league investigation.
Some real legalese happening there.
Yes.
The fact that we have had 2 more investigations, I would suggest there's a little evidence that enough evidence to be investigated. How about that? That people thought there might be some more gambling. We're seeing across sports that is a massive problem right now. So, but yes, the NBPA's statement legally that does stand. If I'm Malik Beasley, I don't think that there's a team out there that would give him more than the minimum. But if there was, given again the other financial information, like we got, I think it was the Detroit News reporting. I apologize if I'm crediting that wrong. Was reporting that like he got evicted from an apartment. He has this crazy tab at a barber shop that all this stuff that he's not paying, which indicates we don't know.
Get evicted from an apartment. It was an apartment complex that is part of the Dan Gilbert properties.
There you go. So maybe a minimum will give back if the Cavs are interested in him would be the terms there. But I'm just saying this. I don't know, but this stuff indicates to me that there could be financial trouble in Malik Beasley's life. So in that case, I would think every cent matters in this negotiation. Again, I don't think there's any team in the NBA that would be willing to pay him more than the minimum right now. But if any team did want to separate themselves right now, any of these, $7.2 million exception teams that don't seem like much, if they were to throw that money on the table, I wonder if that would change the equation.
Fair.
And I know we did talk about the Sam Merrill topic of this, and maybe I worded it wrong. The question was, who would you rather have? Now I want to ask that question just to get conversation flowing. Who would you guys rather have if it was a 1-to-1 situation, Sam Merrill or Malik Beasley? Because I think it's interesting what their skill archetypes kind of look like and the success that Malik Beasley has had. But obviously, this is also separating from what the contract that Sam Merrill just received and the confidence that the organization has placed in him because of said contract and the expectation of what he's going to be able to produce under this new contract. But if it was a 1-to-1, no nonsense, no contracts involved, no confidence behind it, who would you rather have?
From an on-court perspective, it's Malik Beasley. He's accomplished more throughout the course of his career. He was in the 6th Man of the Year conversation. He was one of the bench leaders in scoring in the NBA last year. There's just more of a reputation. There's more of a known commodity to Malik and the kind of role that he has had throughout the course of his career. What the Cavs will probably be asking of Sam Merrill, Malik has shown that he can do that at a higher level. So I think there are just more on-court questions about Sam Merrill's readiness for the role that the Cavs are going to be putting him in. In saying that, his cutting is a huge asset to the Cavs. His movement shooting is a huge asset to the Cavs. The way that he moves around the court and how many miles he runs every single time he gets on the floor, that's integral to everything that the Cavs do. And it's not a surprise to me that Kenny Atkinson and the kind of offense that he has always envisioned as a head coach, it's not a surprise to me that he has been so attached to Sam Merrill since basically the minute he got this Cavs job. Because the kind of player that Sam is and the skill set that he brings to the table, Kenny has always had that at every single stop, whether he was a head coach or whether he was an assistant, and he values that greatly. And from that perspective, I think Sam does those kinds of things better than Malik. But in totality, I would think that the answer is Malik Beasley. And I can't imagine too many people saying otherwise.
Yeah, I just pulled up real quick on NBA.com. Malik Beasley was taking about 4 pull-up shots a game last year during the regular season. And it might have been during the playoffs. I don't know. I'm just whipping around the NBA tracking data right now. And Sam Merrill in the playoffs wasn't even taking 1 a game. So there's a little bit of a difference between these guys. I think Sam Merrill fits the Kenny system a little bit better. Again, Malik Beasley should be willing to fit whatever system he gets thrown into at this point. And I think that motivation would be there. It's really not a contest. If we're talking just basketball, where, as we know, as Kenny Atkinson has told us from the moment he got here, it's a little bit deeper than that. We're trying to build a culture, and they've done a good job doing that. And Sam is a guy in particular that Kenny has gravitated toward. It would be a little awkward for the Cavs to, even if it's the correct basketball decision, kind of nudge it. One of their brightest success stories, like a gem that they found, developed, turned into a rotation player, turned into a rotation player after changing coaches, like believed in him to that degree. Like Sam Merrill, after the coaching change, Kenny Atkinson's like, I think there's more in this guy. Like, I think I see what you see, Kobe. And they're right. There is a little bit more. Sam Merrill's probably still closer to like a specialist than an everyday rotation player, in my opinion. But I think the Cavs showed there's a little bit more meat on that bone last year, and they deserve kudos for that. And then to bring in this guy, albeit a good basketball decision, that would be a small crack in the culture. I think it's also Sam Merrill is a well-liked guy, well-respected guy in the locker room. That would be,
and his number one ally happens to be the leader of this team,
Donovan Mitchell. And I think, like I said, it's at the top here. I think the Cavs culture is strong enough to withstand a small crack like that, but it's not nothing. And think about this. So the Cavs would have let Ty Jerome go this offseason, who is a childhood friend of Donovan Mitchell's, who is the best friend of DeAndre Hunter, who is a piece that they're still kind of trying to figure out how to fit into this. It's been a little bit awkward for him since he got here. And then they'd be kind of nudging Sam Merrill, or at least creating competition for Sam Merrill, when Sam Merrill, probably for the first time in his life, when he signed that contract, is probably feeling, I think I got some security in the NBA, right? That's tough. It's a business. NBA, like, talent comes first, winning comes first. If Malik Beasley brings the Cavs closer to a championship than Sam Merrill, I think the team would accept it. But it would be during a regular season that is already going to be rocked with tension and awkwardness. Like we've outlined this a 1,000 times on the pod. Nothing you can do in the regular season can help improve your standing. It can only hurt your standing. And we've been tiptoeing around, like, could this be like one of the first dramatic regular seasons, semi-dramatic regular seasons we've had with the Cavs? It would be following this playoff exit upward, this kind of offseason where you're making life harder on one locker room favorite and straight up saying goodbye to another one, would be a test of the Cavs culture.
Let's just reiterate this. The Cavs love Sam Merrill. They committed to him for a reason. I do believe that they acquired the G League draft pick in order to draft him specifically, because they were looking at him and they wanted to bring him to their program in some way. And when they finally felt like he was ready for a call-up from the G League, they wasted no time giving him a standard NBA contract. So this is somebody that the organization values at a high level. This is somebody that the organization felt really comfortable committing to, especially this offseason, when they did kind of have a financial crunch and they did have some difficult roster-related decisions to make. Never in their mind did they think, we got to move on from Sam Merrill. Like, they wanted Sam here. They feel like he is a big-time value to this team. They felt like he showed a lot on the defensive end of the floor, especially in that series against Indiana. And I don't think they'll ever say it publicly, but I think they were more concerned about Ty Jerome's playoff viability than they were about Sam Merrill's playoff viability. So this isn't a situation where the Cavs are looking to themselves and saying, we made a mistake giving him this kind of commitment, this kind of contract. We need to fix this or something along those lines. Or we don't like the way that our roster sets up because we have questions about Sam Merrill. So let's find somebody that can make us feel a little bit better. I think this is just in a vacuum. It's an opportunity that should not be presented to the Cavs at this point of the offseason. It's an opportunity that shouldn't be presented to the New York Knicks at this point in the offseason. And it's an opportunity that no other team other than the Detroit Pistons were going to have this offseason, because the Detroit Pistons came into this offseason saying, we're bringing back Malik Beasley. That's part of the way that we're going to use our cap space that we have. And then once everything happened off the floor, they had to pivot and they went a completely different direction, and they had to change their whole offseason free agency approach because they're trying to compete too. And they need guys that are going to help them. And that's why they brought in Duncan Robinson. That's why they brought in, Karis LeVert. So from the Cavs' perspective, this isn't a situation where they're saying, we don't feel comfortable with Sam, we've got to bring in Malik Beasley. This is, hey, look, it's August 25th. We've got only the veterans minimum. Wow. This is the most talented guy that is out there that we could potentially sign that may have an interest in joining our team as well. Is there something that works here on both sides?
Yeah, and I'm in complete agreement with you guys. I think the most interesting part of this is how Malik Beasley's shot chart would change, right? He averaged last season 13.1 attempts per game from the field. 9.3 of those came from the three-point range. Obviously, we also have the conversation about Sam Merrill, who averaged just 6 shots a game, and 5.2 of those were from beyond the arc, obviously in almost 9 minutes less on the floor per game. But I think that would be an interesting change to Malik Beasley's game, how often he would be asked to do that, especially having more talent around him in general. And also, obviously, the Detroit Pistons needed him to take those shots, to space the floor and all those things. With Tim Hardaway Jr. gone, what does that say? With Duncan Robinson now available, what would that say? What would that do for his role? So my last question for you guys would be, if Malik Beasley were to re-sign with the Detroit Pistons, and then you have a depth chart for the Pistons of Caris LeVert, Duncan Robinson, Ron Holland, Paul Reed, Malik Beasley, Marcus Sasser, alongside their starting lineup of Cade Cunningham, Jay Nivey, Asar Thompson, Tobias Harris, and Jalen Duren. Obviously, Isaiah Stewart's in there at some point as well. Do you think that changes the Detroit Pistons' odds of having success in the playoffs? Or do you think it changes how the Cavs view them as a threat in the Eastern Conference?
No, I mean, I think first off, it feels like to me Detroit has mentally moved on from Malik Beasley, and they feel good about the other moves that they have made to cover up that weakness and fill that particular hole. In saying that, if he were theoretically to go back to Detroit, no, that doesn't change anything. It certainly makes them better. It makes them deeper. We saw the kind of value that he had. We saw that he fits in that system. We saw that he fits around that group of players. He's probably more playable than Duncan Robinson. But I don't think Malik Beasley is a needle mover from that perspective for that kind of team. Right? Detroit's going to have to do their players from an internal perspective are going to have to make a significant leap for them to get into the tier that the Cavs are in, that the Knicks are in. It's going to take a little bit more than just bring back Malik Beasley.
You want to talk about awkward locker room stuff? Malik Beasley coming back to Detroit after they gave $16 million a year to Duncan Robinson to replace him. Oops. Malik's back. And he's better than you, Duncan Robinson. Sorry about that. You want to go be an expensive end of bench guy again, like you were in Miami? No, I don't think he wants that. I think, honestly, Malik Beasley probably looking at that situation like it's not the best one for him at this point either. I will say, if they could somehow figure out a way to make it out, to make it work, I should say, you could put a lot of spacers around Cade the Pistons could have some pretty interesting offensive lineups. Now they'd be getting completely torched on the other end, so I don't know what the net gain is there, but it'd be interesting to experiment with.
I just think the depth part of it makes it interesting, especially going from a team that had no shooters, basically, outside of Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr., to being surrounded by shooters might change the outcome of some of the Pistons' thoughts in those things. But I just think the Cavs are also just on a different tier than Detroit at this point, and they haven't proven to be a playoff success team. So I think the Pistons are still trying to prove themselves. The Cavs are still trying to prove themselves in a playoff sense as well, but there's a different level of understanding when it comes to these two teams. So while Detroit is a gritty, grimy team that will get nasty with you if need be, and that's probably the biggest reason they could be seen as a threat to the Cavs in an Eastern Conference matchup. But I just think the Cavs just overall have more talent in that pool and are able to distribute a lineup that can attack what Detroit has as weaknesses as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's up to Detroit. I think it's up to Atlanta. I think it's up to Orlando to prove this year that they can get to the regular season tier of the Cavs and the Knicks. And all those teams certainly have to show it, just like the Cavs have to show that they can be a viable playoff contender. There's a lot to prove from that perspective, but Detroit has to show that they can get to that regular season tier as those other teams. The other thing that I'll say is, aside from Russell Westbrook, Malik Beasley's probably the most playable commodity in free agency right now. So if it were being Detroit, if it were whoever has an interest, adding that guy, it's not going to be a significant landscape shifting move, but it would be a big coup at this point of the offseason to whatever team is comfortable enough with the Malik Beasley situation to sign him, if we get more information about the off-court troubles not being as problematic as maybe what they seem to be right now. Because beyond Russell Westbrook and Malik Beasley, you're talking about guys who you have to squint and you have to really convince yourself to see a viable NBA rotational caliber player.
Thinking about JB Bickerstaff, defense first JB Bickerstaff, trying to put together lineups with Malik Beasley and Duncan Robinson in the rotation.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
Tough. For as much of a wizard as he is, that would be tough. That would be a challenge for even him.
And I think that's a great way to end today's podcast. So, with all that being said, that'll wrap up today's episode of the Wine and Gold Talk podcast. But remember to become a Cavs Insider and interact with Chris, me, and Jimmy by subscribing to Subtext. This is where you can send in your weekly Hey Chris questions so we can talk to you about what you want to hear at this point in the summer about the Cleveland Cavaliers. Sign up for a 14-day free trial or visit cleveland.com/Cavs and click on the blue bar at the top of the page. If you don't like it, that's fine. All you have to do is text the word STOP. It's easy, but we can tell you that the people who sign up stick around because this is the best way to get insider coverage on the Cavs from me, Chris, and Jimmy. This isn't just our podcast, it's your podcast. And the only way to have your voice heard is through Subtext. Y'all be safe. We out.